Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and this is very important session for us. Today we have a global business discussions and the roundtable discussion with Pacific Rime Chamber of Commerce, and we have our honorable chairman, Mr. Holmes. We also have Professor Dr. Ali. We have Mr. Eric, and we have Mr. Yang. Anyway, this is the first session for us, Mr. Ting, if I'm not wrong. So this is very important session for us because World Talent Economy Forums and Pacific Rim Business Chamber of Commerce, we are trying to making a collaborations, and we are trying to solve different kind of problems and issues in around the globes. So we're going to discuss, and we're going to discuss with different interesting sessions, and hopefully in the future we're going to go for more roundtable discussion. I want to start with Mr. Holmes. I know already you introduce yourself for these sessions. Can you please introduce yourself?
Well, we are the four of us here, are as well as you, Mr. Sharif, are part of this worldwide effort to help small businesses connect and grow through our resources, and we call ourselves the Pacific Rim Business Council. So that the Pacific Rim Business Council, of which Mr. Eric Westreich is our CEO. He will give you a little more detail of what our agenda is and what our goals are. But the Pacific Rim Business Council has been around for 33 years, and we have recruited around the world about 400,000 small and medium-sized enterprises that are all looking for the same thing. They want to grow and they want to connect outside of their country or their area. So that's pretty much what we are and what we do.
Mhm. Thank you, sir. I want to ask Dr. Gooyabadi, can you please introduce yourself, and can you just give us some of the guidelines that how this organization works and how you create the global relationships with the other community? Already, one of our observer from India, she is Dr. Orpita Sneh. She said great scholars. I think many people also observing from different countries.
All right. Hello, everyone. And as our president was saying, PACRIM BC or Business Council has been in operation for over 30 years. It's a place where people come in to receive services, mainly those that are related to international arena, international business. So this could be related to international company structure, could be concerning foreign laws and regulations, could be issues related to feasibility studies, partnership program, uh, finding appropriate match or appropriate source, or being able to manage supply chain complexities and risks and labor exploitations that might not be the same across the globe, and many other aspects. Now, that's what we do at uh, Pacific Rim Business Council, is to educate, empower, and create a learning environment upon which our members can quickly look into the concerns with just a few clicks, and we provide them the best professionals and best advice in such a fashion that it would feel like they belong to a global group. Hopefully, that's a good introduction to that. And to do it this way, we do it by bringing a university and many other members on board.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sir. We have also audience response from Mr. Araf Mehraz. He said, we are watching for today's discussion from the great business leaders. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You joining with us. I think with your discussions and with your guidelines, we have many talented guys and people from around the world, especially from Asia Pacific they maybe get different idea and we can work together. Yes, I want to request Mr. Ting, can you please introduce yourself? And this is, I think, the first time you join with World Talent Economy Forums. Can you please introduce yourself and your experience and other things?
Uh, Hi, you can call me Moo. I normally just go by my first name. Um, so my background is in marketing and specifically online marketing. And we're talking about COVID today, and a lot of business unfortunately has suffered. But in the marketing field, you actually see some very interesting trends. Um, a lot of traditional marketing platform is we see a shift from that. Like outdoor billboard has been cut dramatically, and even TV ads are not as booming as well. They have been declining, but today companies are starting to shift to the online trend, just like everything else in our life. And what does this mean for our small business, especially in the Asian Pacific area? It's that the small business of the world is kind of taking over. Customers are starting more and more to trust, there's stuff they can buy from all over the world, and they are buying it from the internet. So when you have a choice to go to the grocery store or go to your local Walmart or just buy stuff from Amazon or even AliExpress, people are slowly shifting from buying stuff from AliExpress or Amazon. So that's an opportunity for all of small business, because it used to be if you are not big enough, Walmart won't even talk to you. But today, small business has a chance.
Mm. Thank you, sir. Mr. Eric, can you please introduce yourself? And you are working as a CEO for
Sure,
PRBC. Yes, can you please
sure.
introduce yourself? And yes.
I think what's more interesting than me is the other people we have on this call, and they don't like to brag, so I'd rather brag on them. This really started with Holmes Stoner. Again, doesn't like to brag about himself. Over 30 years ago, was successfully helping small companies go global, and he realized there were two challenges to that. The first was that small businesses didn't think they could go global; they were too small. And the second challenge was they didn't have the resources. So he figured that if he could help small businesses get the belief and access the resources, then they could grow globally. And he did that for years and years and years. But he realized to really make this work, he needed to um, bring a lot of other people. You need a team of resources to go global. You can't do that with one person. So that's what the Pacific Rim Business Council has been doing for over 30 years is one, helping people get presence anywhere they need in the world. You want to do business with Sharif in Malaysia, he's a great guy to do business with, and he's a resource. If you need people to do legal or make connections for you, all those things, you could do that. But we also realized that there was another hole in that, and that was the fact of training. And why is that so critical today? Because the world's changing so fast. Everything from sustainability and corporate social responsibility and uh, virtual presence like we're doing now. And so we brought in really one of the top people in the world, and that's Dr. Ali Gooyabadi, who keeps track of people and presence and technologies and all those kind of things. We realized the resources had to do more to prepare people. And that's the one reason why we brought in a university to blend with that, because you just can't keep up today. It's moving so fast with this idea of Industry 4.0, the way technology is changing the way we do business. It's critical. And the other expertise in bringing in Dan Foster, who's with us, and Wu Yen, is this idea of, besides the fact that you need to be able to do presence with resources, you need training resources, you also need resources for partnerships, because these days, if you just have your one little thing you do, that's good, but what's more powerful is to bring manufacturing with distribution or distribution with software development. And so those are really the three things: your business do business everywhere, to be prepared when you do that, and to create sustainable partnerships, which allow anybody to be successful any place. And I think that's what this team that you see here is what, including yourself, is really what this is about.
Mhm. Thank you, sir. I want to introduce Mr. Foster. Can you please introduce yourself and your collaborations and partnerships with these PRBCs and other things? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Dr. Stan Foster. I'm Vice President of California Miramar University. Actually, I put together the group that purchased the university. We're a private university, and back in 2005. And I've known Mr. Stoner for some time. We have a mutual friend, Mr. James Seji, and really was Holmes had a great deal of experience in China. And we, the university, when we first purchased it, we had a program in Vietnam with Vietnam National University for about 12 years. And we're just coming back around now and going to be launching that again with a different partner this time instead of the Vietnam National University. But we've always been a globally centric university. And we saw that was where things were going to go. Of course, COVID has created tremendous challenges in one way, but it also, because we have a good experience with online education and a hybrid education, which is a combination of online and classroom education. So it puts us in a very unique position to be able to deliver still while the pandemic is raging. We still are in a very fine position, and we have our hearts in the right place. Mr. Stoner and Dr. Gooyabadi and I and Eric are all part of an innovative sustainable living corporation, which we founded to help in the coming years with the growing challenges with larger populations and sustainability. So again, it was a group of like-minded people, all centering around the university, but all having their own unique talents that help each other and businesses to grow in this time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I want to take some audience response. Abuyaz Mustain, he said, excellent discussions, because all of you are very experienced, very professional and highly successful business leaders, and you join with World Talent Economy Forums. I think many people actually watching from Malaysia and other countries. Noor Fazrin, she said, hello everyone, greetings from Malaysia. It is our pleasure for watching this session with great leaders. Thank you. There is one question from audience. I want to take these questions. Araf Mehraz, he said, hello sir, would you tell us what companies can do to reduce near-term expenses? Just as you are working with different kind of small and medium enterprise, and I know that you also have very good collaborations with these Asia Pacific markets, and you do a lot of interesting business activities. And COVID period is very challenging period for every business, every organizations. So as you more focus on small medium enterprise and this kind of things, I want to start with Mr. Stoner. Can you please explain that how we should we can create more collaborations and partnership with this small medium enterprise, how we should work together, how technology can help us, especially your organization PRBC, how they can help this Asia Pacific business organization.
Relationships are the key element, just like they are worldwide, no matter what nation you're in. Your success usually depends on your relationships with people that have matching resources, particularly financial resources like banks, finance companies, and companies that deal with when you're buying and selling, and when you're trading, and when you're importing and you're exporting. The financial aspect of that is extremely important. So your first and foremost relationship has to be with someone who can help you finance. I think that you can ask Mr. Or Dr. Ali. He's a pretty attuned to all this sort of thing because he does a lot of international work similar to that.
Mhm.
Dr. Ali?
Yes. Can you please unmute
You're muted.
yourself?
Yes, Sharif. Could you mute everyone? That way we don't have the background noise. That would be very good.
Okay.
Now, I think the question was COVID-19 as well as how do you reduce overhead. In reality, if anyone wants to be able to continue doing business in a global arena, and for that matter, in a local area, you need to understand how business is done and look at the leaders who are managing a lot more for a lot less. Now, that really means understanding and assimilating, meaning bringing the technology which has made it possible, and that is the information technology. Now, today's world is a virtual world. If you learn that through virtual world, costs are slashed to bare minimum, that work can be streamlined if you understand how to use softwares. As a matter of fact, there's a concept we call follow the free. Whatever you need to run a successful international business, most likely is available at your fingertip for nothing, for zero. Yes, for zero. That means it is your understanding of the new and emerging business world that things can be done without you having to rely upon particular people or particular software. They're all available to you for free. Now, that understanding alone, you have a business plan. Now, a lot of people go to school, but they don't realize what is being taught at school is very essential. There is a reason you write a feasibility study or a business plan or a strategy plan or a technology plan or a marketing plan. Because yes, it seems like too much work, but when you make it clear in your own mind that what can be done, and then it has been designed in such a paradigm that you can ask specific and pertinent questions, then definitely you will be in a position to achieve a lot more for a lot less. And I believe this also includes the issues related to COVID-19. We're seeing millions upon millions of jobs disappearing forever. There is no need any longer to have storefronts or brick and mortar. Today's world, as we can illustrate right here, it's a world that is totally virtual. We can achieve a lot more than we thought we could by just understanding the technology that is readily available and assimilating it into our day-to-day operations. Now I'm going to stop here because you never ask a professor for a question because he's not going to stop.
Yes.
Can I elaborate a little bit on Mr. Stoner's and Dr. Gooyabadi's point?
Please go ahead, Eric.
So
Yes.
the first thing is Mr. Stoner talked about relationships. There are three kinds of relationships to focus on in reducing your business costs. The first one is connections. Do you know people who connect? But Mr. Stoner connects everybody with everybody. If you want to reach anybody, Mr. Stoner can find them. So you need connectors. And you need connectors like Mr. Stoner and connectors like Sharif in Malaysia. So you can get a lot of work done by connecting with people quickly. The second type of relationship is people with expertise. People who know just what you need. And another type is people who get things done. If there's a hard time getting paperwork done, there's those kind of things. So it's building different kind of relationships and knowing which relationship is the one you need. The other point in terms of how do you do business in the COVID world is something that Dr. Ali Gooyabadi is a master of. The first thing to look at is, are there any new markets doing what you do now? You don't have to change anything. You just have to do it in different places, taking advantage of the technology. So if you look at what Dr. Gooyabadi has done as an online university, first thing he did was go after new markets, doing the same thing. Instead of just students, he went after corporations. So now California Miramar University is a corporate university also. And then he went in to look at other markets down to high school kids. And so building new markets is a strategic way to grow your business without getting any additional costs. In fact, some of those costs are less. The other thing to do is look for new markets, things people aren't doing but now need. And that is an example of what Stan and Moo and Dr. Gooyabadi went to with innovative sustainable living. Here's a brand new company doing things in a different way. So sometimes it's just the way you deliver is different. Sometimes it's the terms. I have a friend that charges the exact same as before, but he takes less up front. He takes just enough to keep it running and then charges because he knows it's going to work, but people are more hesitant and they don't quite have that money up front. So you can change the terms. So it's not just going after new markets, it's doing things in a different way. And the other thing you can do during this time is get ready for when things loosen up, which is add value and create connections. So Stan has organized many content, which is free. It just builds a relationship with people that will do business later. So that's kind of my take on Mr. Stoner's great thoughts is connecting is important, but you need to know the right type of connector and how you grow in this business using the technology is you go after more people you can help. You help them in a different way with what you already have, and you look for where you can do something that's now needed that wasn't before. And finally, you can just go to the point where you use this time to add value and create closer relationships, those relationships Mr. Stoner talked about, closer relationships, so that when things do come back, you've got bigger markets.
I do want to chime in about building closer relationship as well as building new relationship in terms of how do you interact with customers. After all, yes, we are talking about saving money or saving expense during this hard time, but all the money you can save in the world doesn't mean you have a positive on your account, bank account, right? So you need to save money, but in the same time, you also need to figure out a way to make more money. So from the marketing or the how do you interact with customer point of view, there are two things you can do essentially. The first thing, like I said, with today's situation, most people are getting used to or getting comfortable with remote. So with that, you can have all of a sudden you have the entire world as your market. So in this newly developed market, what can you do? So focus on that and then figure out if you have some new sales channel, if you have some new marketing channel that you can actually grow your business exponentially. But that's a risky route to go. Another route actually goes directly to saving money is to reduce your overhead, reduce your headcount. At least in marketing field, we see a downward trend. I think this is a global trend, but especially in marketing, for the first time ever, we have seen a downward trend in hiring new marketing personnel. And surprisingly, the budget for marketing didn't really go down, and the effectiveness of marketing didn't go down either. This is all backed by American Marketing Association data. And so what's happening? So the hypothesis here is people are working with less, but they are doing more. And I guess that's the overall theme on how do you save money in a pandemic or in any situation. You make sure the people you do have are working tirelessly, are working effectively, and you make sure the effort you put into, especially in marketing, actually have returns. There's an old saying in marketing that I know 50% of my marketing budget is basically down the drain, but the trouble is how to figure out which half. And nowadays with the technology and with this new trend in online marketing, the good news is we can actually figure it out. Every single click on the on the internet has a cost associated to it. If the user is not paying for it, the platform is paying for it. And if the platform is not paying for it, the company is paying for it. The advertiser is paying for it. So you know exactly what happens to your marketing money. You can know that. So are you looking at that? Right? If you're not, that's the best way to cut your marketing budget ever. Look into how to track your sales. Look into how to track your traffic, and that's my practical advice for all the small business out there to wanting to save money.
We
Thank
have
you,
an
sir.
old saying. We have an old saying called "one man's ceiling is another man's floor." And if you think about that, what Mr. Mu was just saying is an example of that. As we live in today's post COVID world, when we come through this pandemic on the other side, we're going to have a new world to reinvent. All the X's on the chart will now turn into Y's, and all the Y's are going to be the new world. Everywhere where there is adversity and challenges, there is opportunity, especially for small business because they're small enough and flexible enough to adjust. So we're looking at a bright new world, but a very different new world. So that's what this team is all about. The people that are around you today is to figure out what that is and how to adjust our members to the new world that they have to face post-pandemic.
Thank you. Professor Foster, do you want to add something in this particular point? Can you unmute yourself?
Works better that way. Sorry about that. No, one of the things that Holmes said is very, very pertinent, and one of the things that causes us concern and where we're putting a lot of our energy. As you know, the COVID crisis created the need for many different facets. One of them, the hospital that was built in Wuhan, that I don't know if Mr. Stone had told you, but it was his company that actually manufactured those buildings that allowed that to be built in record time and addressed the challenges that were being faced at that time. That's one of the areas that we're looking at with the innovative sustainable living. As the world population continues to grow, and there's no signs of it slacking off, but there's going to be greater and greater challenges in finding affordable housing, and housing that really serves many purposes. That's smart housing. So that's one of the areas that we've personally looked at. The university's looking at those areas as well. Another very innovative scenario what the university is doing, and it's really, again, attributable to Dr. Gooyabadi, is that our doctoral programs and our doctoral students are truly assets. As Dr. Gooyabadi says, you don't get a doctorate degree, you become a doctor. And part of that process is learning how to research and fill needs and voids that the world has. Now, this is kind of similar to small businesses. Or any business, if you're going to have a successful business, you need to be able to find a particular subject, a niche that needs to have a problem solved, and hopefully you can provide a good, smart answer to that problem. So one of the things that we have personally all looked at and have a joint shared vision with is the sustainability of and quality of life and living, and how that is going to be changed and going to go more towards technology and be solved by innovative materials and smart materials. And I think that for us, that was one of those areas that we decided that we were going to pursue that direction.
Now,
Thank you.
let me just take. I mean, I read the questions here. One was, is it possible to remote work for an extended time? And the other question was, is socially responsible business a mandate, or is it a choice? Now, I think let me just quickly address these two. And to be honest, I'm not sure how this COVID-19 will turn out to be. and what its long-term effects are. But in reality, it's not going to go away very soon, number one. Number two, who says remote working is wrong? Yes, we are used to going to work, but how about if work can come to us? Do we really mind going to work with our underwear on, as long as your appearance is fine? Do we really want to drive and in reality sit in that traffic for such a long time, go to a stressful environment where we can do it from the comfort of our house? Or do we need that social interaction? And is the social interaction at work the kind of social interaction we're looking for? We need to remember we are creatures of habit. Yeah, habitually speaking, for the last part of 19th century, the whole 20th century and 21st century, we have been trained to work in groups. But who says groups have to be real? They're getting together. How about virtual groups, as we are doing right now? My senses are, at least if you look at different generations, Generation Z will have no issue at all adapting to extended work period. That's issue one. Issue two, I believe that remote work has its own advantages. Obviously, everything that has advantages has disadvantages. But I think from cost point of view, from what Mo was discussing and from what Eric was alluding to, I believe that remote work is going to be the next trend in the future. I don't care what happens in the world. I think home shoring and offshoring will almost be the same, meaning taking work home or offshore to somebody else's home anywhere in the world. And it's going to have major effect on sustainability of corporations. On the socially responsible business or corporate social responsibility or individual social responsibility front, also people are looking for beneficial type of activities that, while it is benefiting me as an individual, it also benefits the place I get paid from or I make my living, the business I work for or the business I own. In reality, it seems like there is a common good that we all have to adhere to. Now, up to now, most of what we see as CSR, corporate social responsibility, seems to be driven by prestige or by government mandates. But I believe more and more we're realizing there are actual benefits to it, because the environment is our responsibility, the city is our responsibility, the poor is our responsibility and has a bearing on sustainability of our business. So I believe the way the future, this COVID-19, all it did, it brought 2030 to 2020. That's all it did. Something that would have taken 10 years because people are reluctant to get involved with the new trends. I think it just gave us that new trend immediately and forced us to face it. And I believe, yes, it is possible to have extended remote work. And yes, it is definitely our responsibility to be socially responsible. So I believe the answers to both are yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank
and
you. Thank you, sir.
There's also that connection between individual social responsibility and corporate social responsibility. That ISR, CSR satisfaction has a direct impact to job performance and actually long-term support of the company, engagement. So you have to look at the responsibility from two ends: what individuals do and what corporations do, and it's closing the gap.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes.
So speaking of the interplay between individual social responsibility and corporate social responsibility, it's actually a very fascinating topic if you look at it through a cultural point of view. Culture does make a difference in which drives which. For example, Carol Cass He's a German scholar on this subject, and he did a study in German-speaking countries and just see how our his particular study is on leadership driving corporate social responsibility and therefore drive corporate resilience. But what's important from his study that we learned is, at least in German-speaking country, a lot of company, their corporate social responsibility are actually being driven by individual social responsibility. So once you get through to individual people, they will actually come together to make sure that their cooperative or their corporation is socially responsible. But for some of the, especially in the Eastern countries, we have a higher collectivism. So people identify themselves as part of an organization instead of just an individual. So they take care of each other. They take care of their co-workers or their other members in the societies, and also their family. Let me put it the other way. So everybody gets taken care of, but that comes with a price, and that price is unquestionable or unquestioning loyalty to your organization, to our society. So in a setting like that, you got to think differently. It's no longer getting through to the individual and then have them drive the organization. It's the other way around. You have to get through to the organizations first, and then individual would follow suit. So in a company that's environmentally conscious, maybe all the employees in that company would start to think of their ways to how do I contribute to this organizational efforts. And therefore, they will adjust their lifestyle to suit for the socially responsibility lifestyle, and they will align themselves to the organization instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Professor Fosters, and I want to add Mr. Holmes as well, that what's your point of view? Because we saw many of your actually different speeches in the global arena that you are requesting millions of people how they can more socially responsible. You are requesting many organizations how they can be more socially responsible. Especially, I know that your organization also working for sustainable development goals. So how do you want to explain these points and in terms of Asia Pacific market?
Well, I'll let Dr. Foster
Okay,
start, and
Dr.
then
Foster.
I'll go
Yes.
after him.
Thank you very much. Well, I haven't delivered too many speeches lately, but I most of my speeches were delivered in southern China, in Shenzhen and whatnot. I do think very strongly what I agree with Mu. Social responsibility has to be set by the company, but with the ability today of being forced into being more online, I think it has accelerated the awareness as well by companies. By their own nature, they would have been slower to adapt. I agree very much with what Dr. Gooyabadi said in that regard. And we're seeing now that even we see it very much in our university, because what used to be very challenging for even our students to go on and participate in their classes and their studies and their interactions were very much foreign. They, even though they were studying, most of them didn't prefer to study online, and they preferred more to be in a hybrid situation or coming into a classroom, and where they could have greater flexibility and greater discussions. But look at us today, where everybody here is tuned in. The stock in the company Zoom has skyrocketed because all of a sudden people have found out that, my goodness, you can be connected, and you can be with people that you would never have been able to exchange ideas with before. And I think it's that interchange of ideas that is helping to spur the corporate social responsibilities. Once you get to know people better, once you can communicate with them directly, once you've had some face-to-face talks with them, you start to see, as Dr. Gooyabadi calls it, respect. When respect is just seeing something from another person's perspective or through their eyes. And nothing is better than developing that corporate social responsibility than exchanging ideas freely with others, hearing their differences, trying to sense where they're coming from, and then making that have a difference in how you treat your employees, how you treat your company, and how that company treats the world.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
20 years ago, I was on a train from Guangzhou, China, down to Hong Kong. And as I was looking out the window, I saw piles and piles of garbage bags, plastic garbage bags, piled up 8 or 10 feet high for miles and miles. And I was so overwhelmed by the enormity of it that when I got to Hong Kong and I met with the newspaper there, the newspaper editor, I told them what I had seen. And when I was a boy, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was the manufacturing capital at that time in that part of the United States. And we had a similar problem in the fact that we poisoned the rivers. Our smokestacks would kill all the trees. We had plastic factories. We had a nuclear plant, and people were getting leukemia at unprecedented rates. I grew up in a very polluted area. It was a very wealthy area, but a very polluted area. And I shared that with those people there in southern China and in Hong Kong. And they invited me back many times to speak about that because of my experiences. And I decided at that time, which was about 20 years ago, that I was going to put together an organization called the Green Alliance and teach these small businesses how to be better environmental citizens and better sustainable people that could show the way to the others. Because believe it or not, over 60% of the pollution on our planet is not caused by the big corporations. It's caused by the little guys, the little companies. They're the ones that burn the oil, defoliate or deforest the planet. They're the ones that are responsible for most of this pollution that you see. So what we've done here as a team, our team in front of you here, is to try to integrate that part of sustainability and environmental education to our members so that at least it'll make some kind of impact. And we have to think about this because 2030 is not that far away. 2030 is our tipping point. If we do not change the way we live, the way we do business, the way we react with our planet, 2030, we're going to go the opposite direction. And we don't want that to happen to our relatives, our children, and the people around the world. As this population increases proportionately, the resources contracting proportionately, and 60% of our people continually polluting the planet, it's not a bright future. So it's up to us. It's all of us. We have to draw the line right here, right now, and we have to start educating people on being better environmental citizens and learning more about sustainability in the 21st century.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I want to take another question from audience. She is Anika Shams. Her question is that, hello, sir. What are the major challenges in business for underdeveloping countries after COVID-19? Thank you.
I think the challenges for the underdeveloping countries after or before COVID-19 is the mentality of being underdeveloped. Because you need to keep in mind the way we think, the way we see the world has a direct impact on how we conduct ourselves. I have been trying to do business development in the underdeveloped and developing countries for the past 30 years. What I learned was that more important than any sort of investment or technology transfer it was very essential for me to go into an organization and change people's mindset. People's mindset. I don't care if they are here in USA, the most developed nation on earth, or in places as remote as you can imagine. You see underdeveloped companies here because it's run by underdeveloped minds here. The issues of, it is true that you might say, but come on, you're making it too simple because when we're underdeveloped, we don't have, I say, what don't we have? Oh, we don't have laws. We don't have good banking system. We don't have good access to the market. We don't have this, we don't have that. I'm saying, yeah, but that don't have could be mitigated easily if you first become a developed individual, a developed manager. If you are willing to go beyond your understanding, because the first question is, how do you know that you know? And I learned that from my 5-year-old. When each time I would tell her something, she would say, how do you know? And she was a stubborn girl, but she always asked me, how do you know? It's, I think, time for anyone, individual or companies. We need to understand, what does it mean to be underdeveloped? Does it mean that it's an interconnected set of rules and regulations and forces that force us into being underdeveloped? Or there are other means for us, if we can discover our true selves, our way of being developed, that we can not just surpass this, but keep in mind, in an underdeveloped nation, if you have a developed mind, you could go from 0 to 100 in such a short period of time that you'd be amazed. I have tested this in many different countries. Therefore, it goes to you defining for yourself, what does it exactly mean when you say underdeveloped countries? Does it mean something you have no choice? Or does it mean something that people have not done their job, so you have to think of an innovative, novel way of being able to deal with what is happening? Believe you me, today, based on COVID-19, a lot of companies, a lot of pop and mom shops are realizing how underdeveloped they are. Underdeveloped and developed has to do with your mentality, what you believe in, what you adhere to, and how you see the world. My belief is that we should not allow the old regiment of colonial mechanism run and govern our way of thinking. We need to redefine, what does it mean to be underdeveloped, and how much of it is my responsibility within my power, and how much is it beyond my capabilities, and how can I mitigate that? Put together something called, what does it mean to be underdeveloped for me? Don't use general terms, because none of those general terms apply anymore.
Thank you.
And I'd like to expand on that just a little bit. I ended up working, I left the corporate world and went to help 25-year-old kids start up a company. And so the idea isn't what do we do and where do we do it, what's our environment in, it's what could we do. So we actually had to, in the startup world, we call that a pivot. We had to take what the company does and rethink it 3 times before we got it right. But once we got it right, the company grew 300% a year, ended up signing an agreement with Panasonic, and now it's, it's been around for years, and those 25-year-old kids, 30-something-year-old kids and successful. So the idea isn't, what am I, where do I go? It's what do people need, what we could be. And the other part we brought in was this idea of sustainable partnerships. If there's an opportunity, there's an opportunity. If you take the idea of microloans, that was an opportunity that instead of doing big loans, we'll do lots of small loans and make as much money. So that idea of what partnerships can I bring in to the undeveloped words that can add the holistic problem-solving view of, here's the whole problem, I do this piece, they do that piece, together, we can actually solve a big problem. You can grow very quickly.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mo. Yeah.
So when we are talking about development, what is development? Like when you say underdeveloped, what do you actually mean by that? There is actually an answer to that question, and it's a model divided by the UN, and it includes three aspects. First one is your life and health expectancy, expectancy, and the second one is your knowledge. And in knowledge, you have two sub divisions. One is your expected years of schooling, and the next one is mean years of schooling, and the last one is a decent standard of living. So the first one and the last one are, the first one is about how long people can live, and how is your healthcare system, and what kind of lifestyle that you are living, so that you stay healthy. That part is it doesn't matter what country you are. It's more on the individual than it's on the society, because you can choose to live a healthy lifestyle as long as you know what is healthy. And the last one is, some people say, hey, our country is poor, and I make $1 in my currency, and if I spend that dollar in the US, it's like a penny. Yes, that's the thing. But if you spend your money in your country, it's still worth $1. And that's just way oversimplified explanation of what the purchasing power is. And if you consider that, as long as you're within your means, you should be good. So the first and the last one, we can't really do much about. So what does it mean in a COVID situation? What impact does COVID have on the middle one? And the middle one, by the middle one, I mean the education one. So today's education, it's even before the COVID, we have seen a shift from people going to college physically and just party all the time, or just burn out their credits by getting student loans, and then just become a slave of student loan for the rest of their life. To today's, most people are getting interested in online education, and I'm not even by talking about that, I'm not even trying to push our education here. We do provide excellent online education, but that's beyond the point. So even today, without going to an online college, people can still learn online. And we're at a pivot point between 4G and 5G technology. Once 5G is fully rolled out, basically anybody in the world, as long as you have a cell phone, you will have access to the internet that's decent enough for you to learn anything. So with that, what is a new education standard? If somebody drop out of the high school, but they never stop learning, would you call that person uneducated? So with that new setup of how education works, we might need to change how we look at development index, as a group. So yes, development country, the underdeveloped, so-called underdeveloped country, is seemingly have a decent advantage in the global pandemic. But I also see an opportunity in the whole situation, just because with the pandemic, the so-called developed world will start shifting to remote education anyways, and therefore they will further develop their remote education. And once they do that, anybody in the world would benefit from that, and that will actually flatten what is developed and what is underdeveloped. And that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, let me add something here to the issue, because someone said what has happened because of COVID-19. We are facing a broken supply chain management concept. When you're looking at that, which is correct, I'm not going to say that the supply chain has not been broken. But these links that you were talking about were of the old type, meaning you were dependent on each other based on physical interaction. Otherwise, just take a look at Amazon, take a look at major companies that not a glitch in that supply chain management. Now, supply chain management, we say it, supply chain management, and we think we know it. To be honest, if it's not the most complicated aspect of today's life, I don't know what is. You might say, okay, politics. In reality, supply chain management has matured to a level that if you understand it, you consider buying from Mr. X and selling to Mr. Y and making sure Mr. Z does this job is a supply chain management. No, no. Supply chain management is a very well developed discipline. And if you understand again what I was saying about the new work environment, the new work practices, the new paradigm in achieving your business, one of the most important aspects of that change in paradigm is for you to understand supply chain management in a most intricate detail that relates to your capabilities, but what other capabilities are available to you via information technology and the virtual world. So to make sure, you definitely need to understand the supplier relationship management. And by the way, that's what PRBC is planning to do. PRBC is planning to not just develop a great platform upon which its members can take advantage of this particular supplier relationship management, but also customer relationship management. But between the supplier relationship management and customer relationship management, you need to also have work relationship management. That includes service production, product delivery, everything. So when you look at least these three different aspects of supply chain management, the reason it broke because of COVID-19, because it was related to people acting there together. Take the people factor out and let it work in such a fashion that is not people dependent, hence is not COVID dependent. Guess what? Either you like it or not, those who depend on it on a day in, day out basis have already done that. Very soon, the old supply chain management, which was really an interaction of human beings as human beings, is dead forever. It's not going to happen. It's too costly. It's too unstable. And therefore, if you see it broken, maybe you need to go back and think about it. Why did it break? How can I build resilience into the concept of supply chain management? As a matter of fact, just supply chain management, and especially global supply chain management, could have a get together, a forum like this, which is very pertinent. But again, rather, I do not mean to tout Pacific Rim Business Council or California Miramar University, but let me tell you something. That is where the missing link is. The new supply chain management, from supplier relationship management all the way to customer relationship management. That's what we're offering our members.
Thank you, sir. Any other want to add something about the supply chain issues? Yes. Mr. Eric.
The thing about supply chain management that has really changed is forecasting. Usually you forecast what you're going to deliver, and then everything comes from where it starts the delivery. And the big thing that's changed is the forecast, your ability to know what's going on. Even though there's lots more information now, if you're sharp and savvy on forecasting, but when Dr. Gooyabadi talks about resilience, that's where the resilience needs to be, where the supply chain is not so dependent on you having as accurate a forecast, because the world is changing, especially globally, not just the pandemic, but finance and markets and laws. So if you can add that resilience down every level of your supply chain, then you're much better off.
Mr. Mu.
You muted. No.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
And
There was there was a dumpster truck outside, and it was noisy.
Thank you so much.
So supply chain, it's yes, in a sense, it's broken if you look at it from a traditional supply chain management point of view. All of a sudden, you have those companies stop working. All of a sudden, you have some of the distributors even stop working. And on the other extreme, especially when you look at long shelf life preparedness, this is my personal experience. I actually did this for one of my clients. Some of the distributors are actually hoarding food themselves. So they think, once there's a food shortage, they can, flip it and sell it for a higher price. That's just unethical, not only unsustainable, that's unethical practice. So yes, it's if you haven't sensed that, I'm a guy who look at things from both sides. And in Chinese, the word opportunity and the word crisis are the same word. So whenever there's a crisis, there's opportunity. So what is the opportunity in terms of supply chain management or supply chain as a whole in this global pandemic? I will just keep going back to the internet. Right? So when a global pandemic forced everybody to go on the internet, to do all their business on the internet, you cut out a lot of middlemen. In the past, there are companies that, doesn't really have any choice to, they in reality have choice, but they don't think they had choice to directly sell to customers. So when that is the case, and the global pandemic that's actually revealed that there's opportunity in shorten your supply chain, that increase our whole economy's efficiency. And I guess that's the benefit of what COVID-19 actually bring to supply chain management. In the past, maybe you go through, distributors to buy some, supplies, or not only supplies, day-to-day life products. And nowadays, you can just order it directly from China. Get rid of Amazon, get rid of the Walmart of the world, and then all of a sudden you save a lot of money, and all of a sudden the manufacturer made a lot of money, and who actually deserves the money actually gets the money, and the middleman, they better start looking for more productive jobs in the world to actually produce something, instead of just basically essentially lying to each other. They are lying to the manufacturer and telling them your stuff doesn't worth as much as you think it worth, and they're lying to the customer and saying this thing actually worth more than it's actually worth. Right? So if you cut off those people, and those people are actually starting to contributing to what we are making change to the world, I guess the human as a whole collective would actually go faster. And where are we going if going faster is actually a real beneficial way to evolve human as a race is another topic. But it's at least the COVID-19 actually increased our efficiency in our supply chain if you look at it from a consumer point of view.
Actually, interesting. In the past, I would say 6 months, I have received hundreds of calls from either previous students or from people who I have interacted with, people who remember me from a conference, or people who I have consulted with. Interestingly, everything that they were asking, one way or another, had to do with relationship management or supply relationship management, because everything else fell off and suddenly got sick. So COVID-19 created a panic wherever human beings interacted with one another. And it affected every process in which human direct interaction was to be major. Now, they say need is a mother of invention. You'd be amazed. Just in these 6 months that I'm watching and I'm helping and I'm answering questions, how many different people have found ways, and they are so happy with the amount of new discoveries, new savings, As a matter of fact, when we were discussing in our, who you meet right now, we are the supposedly member of the boards of the Pacific Rim Business Council, at least the member of the boards within the central location USA. We got other presidents all over the world, such as yourself, Dr. Sharif. So when we were discussing that, what is it that our members need more than anything else was an education to be able to think about new opportunities. What Mo was saying, what Eric was saying, what Dr. Foster or Mr. Stoner were referring to is this. People just, they don't know. Unfortunately, they don't know that they don't know. It could be that the solution is right here. All they have to do is turn their head. That's all they have to do. I tell you, so many people have come to me and thanked me for the fact that I just sent them a paper, or I just gave them a telephone number, or I introduced to them a free software. Nothing big deal. It took me 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So that's the whole idea of a business console. If there is a real business console, it is where you look into, like a Wikipedia, but an applied Wikipedia for how do I do my business post COVID-19. It doesn't matter how small you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's important that this world is important to you because your operation has failed to operate as it used to be for generations. What you have to be willing to do is to ask the right question, not even know what that question is, just at least express to your consultants, to our business consult, what is it that concerns you most? What are your greatest worries? And you'll be amazed how many of these answers are right at your fingertip, just ready for the asking. That's all. Nothing else is required.
We
I
found
have
that
to.
a lot of
I have
times,
to admit. I'm sorry. I have to
Yes.
admit that after doing this for 33 years, uh, the biggest thrill for me is to ally our organization with this university, and it has opened up so many doors that we never had before. And I had never realized this in 20 some odd years of doing this, of how valuable and how essential it is for our people, for our members and our participants to be educated by educated people. Just like Dr. Ali was just saying, all you need to do is just turn your head. It's right there. You can see it. But the problem is trying to be too smart and trying to, and especially younger people starting their own businesses or operating their own businesses, have a tendency to believe that they don't need to learn anything. They know everything already. Well, nobody knows everything. I'm here to tell you. And to have a university like Miramar University as part of our service base is so thrilling and so exciting for the future. And we're just, and now we have Dr. Sharif over here, who's our matching set on the other side of the world. This is just evolving and evolving and evolving and evolving because as people, the younger people get into the workplace, younger people start their own businesses and they get involved with connectivity around the world. We as a team are here to try to assist them and educate them in the new world of business. This is the post-COVID is new. It's not, there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be different that are never going to go back, ever. Okay. And we want the people that are working with us to realize that and to use our resources and to consult us. We're business consultants. We've been doing this for a very long time worldwide, and we want to share what we've learned and what we know and what our university can teach them. We wanted to offer that to all of the people that we work with.
one of the biggest things in Connect that education can help you do is the understanding of dependencies or the misconception about dependencies. A lot of the challenges has been when somebody thinks they're dependent on something, and then you realize that's not a dependency. There are other ways to do that. And the other, on the flip side, is when people doesn't realize there's a dependency in the equation, and it comes to bite them when they're not expecting it. That, oh, I didn't know that these things were related, and it's hurting my business. So that's one thing that you can do just by consulting with other mentors, other people, and by understanding the relationships between things.
Right. And I really like to stress that, because a lot of people have a image of a university of being book smart, and that's nothing could be further from the truth on this. That what we're trying to teach you is to be practically smart, and that's where the real value comes in. And it's trying to remove the shades of cloudiness. Sometimes you can read something and it's so confusing that it doesn't help you at all, even though you can say, I read that book. It's not helpful. So one of the things you're going to find with the whole program we're putting together with the Pacific Rim Business Council is to give you practical, usable information that you can put into use immediately.
And one thing about this wealth of knowledge, the new God, and I mean the new Google, well, Google it's right out there, is that it's not a false assumption. I mean, whatever you need is at your fingertip. The question is, would you realize a solution when you see a solution? In reality, our challenge, and it doesn't matter where you study, where you go, but our challenge is not to be able to solve a problem. But that takes a lot of book smartness. The challenge is, can you find the right solution, which is right for you? And that word right, so there is, and that's the ability all of us need to learn. Can I find the solution, not solve it, because someone has solved it, or something close enough for you to be able to take it and sort of customize it. The question is, when I'm looking, how do I know which solution suits me? Which solution, and that's what Dr. Foster was referring to. Our most important, I would say, contribution to people who we have the honor of serving is to show them that, why this is the right solution for you and why that doesn't work anymore. Because you think, for example, people think, oh, if I buy this beautiful car, I'm going to be successful. See how many young people do that. They believe their only issue is that the car was not right, or they didn't have the right suit, or they didn't have the right degree. Now, the same person, when they buy the car, when they even buy the house, when they even get the money, they're more miserable than when they started, because before they thought achieving the car, achieving the house, achieving the position is a solution. Therefore, it's very important for people to realize what is right before doing it right, because a lot of people are doing something that is wrong, very right. See, right and wrong needs to be understood. If you're planning, let's say, to go to from San Diego, if you're planning to go to Mexico and you're driving very nice, as fast as your car allows you and is safe toward Los Angeles, and everything's great, everything's checked, your car is great, you are a great driver, you're actually doing it wrong. Because you shouldn't be driving north. You should be driving south. A lot of time you see people doing the wrong thing very well. Sometimes maybe not doing anything would be much better. At least you're not getting further away. You don't find yourself in more debt and in more difficulty. Now, someone just asked here, how about risk management? I mean, I suggest you guys get to know someone called the Risk Doctor. The Risk Doctor. He has 101 free videos. I was sort of involved when he was preparing it for Oman, the country of Oman. And he has these 1-2 minute videos, 100 of them, 101 of them. And please watch. Risk, easier said than understood. Risk is not necessarily something negative. Risk is something that has an effect on your output. It could be both positive and negative. Understanding risk and taking risk in a place that it is a risk rather than something that is out of your control. Understanding risk is one thing. Understanding resilience is another thing. Understanding risk is something. Understanding sustainability is something. These are not interchangeable, even though they are interrelated. So when you're talking about risk management, understand how you identify risk, how you score risk, how do you make negative risk distinguishable from positive risk, and how do you use risk mitigations that are pretty well designed, defined. Again, my suggestion, spend that 200, 300 minutes and watch all these videos that are freely available on internet by Dr. Risk, and you'll be amazed how much you will know about this. That's why it's very important to look into that.
So I was at a meeting of corporate directors who were saying, how do you plan for things that you can't plan against? And I like what the director of Del Monte, Fruit said. He said that, because the company's all about things that almost took down a company. That's what every director was speaking, things they didn't see, which almost destroyed the company. And he said, the way I plan for risk after going through that is I surround myself by as many people who don't think like I do. So, having an organization with people that think differently all over the world is a huge advantage when it comes to having somebody look with you at your risk.
Yes.
So, risk management is there's actually standard again international standards on what are the steps for risk management. First you need to identify the risk, then analyze the risk, then evaluate which one takes higher priority for you to actually do something about it, and the next step is to actually do something about the risk that you have identified. And then the last, of course, you need to keep monitoring it, because risk, it's by definition is something we don't know about. If we know that's gonna happen, it's no longer a risk, then it's a fact. Then you just deal with the fact. So risk, it may happen, it may not happen. It's unknown. So if something's nature is that, you got to keep a close eye on it. So that's why the last piece of risk management steps is actually more important than the first four combined, because you need to be vigilant about what is going on and what could be your new risk and what risk has become irrelevant. So yeah, it's there are some books and there are some standards that people can consult on risk management. But if you're a small business, what's more important sometimes is to actually face the truth. And sometimes there are things that are risks you are too scared to think of. But in that situation, if your action is to not face the potential risk, not even to think about it, it's gonna come back and bite you. So for small businesses specifically, the courage to look potential risks directly in the eye and trying to think how to deal with it is more important than actually dealing with risks. Once you get through the first hurdle, you'd be surprised how easy or how trivial some risk can be if you think it in a logical and strategic way.
That's why it's important to have other people to identify risks you may not know happen. The second thing is to say, well, how likely is it that that risk is going to happen? So there's what could happen, how likely is it could happen, and the third thing is, well, if it happens, how bad could it be? Because you have to prioritize your threats. For example, we were working with somebody that wanted no cyber threats at all. No cyber threats at all. And we're saying, would you really care about, would you really care about the menu at the bowling alley restaurant, that, hot dogs, hamburgers. What if somebody really took that? What would you do? You just rebuild it and, cut them off versus spending tons of money to prevent that risk. Because you could prevent it would happen, but in their case, it would be very expensive. So there's what is it worth? What is the scale on what you should do? Just like Lou was talking about.
Yeah. But again, as I was saying, this risk doctor, I remember in the Middle East, it was sold for $8,000 if you wanted to attend a seminars. It was like 360 hours. Now I think you can go to their website and buy it for $1,000, $997. But to be honest, knowing those, and I've been teaching risk management for years now. If you go through these 100 videos that are freely available, and I did include the link for Sharif that I can share with everyone, but just go to internet and go to YouTube and just type risk doctor videos, and you're going to see them. There are 100 questions in there. But understanding what Eric was saying, risk is very specific to you. And because unfortunately our eyes are situated in such a fashion that we can see outward, a lot of time we're incapable of introspection. So we cannot see a lot of risks that are happening to us. We don't see the risk. Either we don't want to deal with it, as Mo was saying, we want to avoid it. But there are these birds that when you run after them, they put their head into the snow. Now, as far as they're concerned, there is no problem. And they're up, out there, their butt hanging out, and you can just pick them and put them in the basket. Now, a lot of time deal with risk by ignoring the risk. They're maybe obese, but they don't want to see it. They have this particular marital issue, they don't want to see it. They see, actually, they choose to ignore it. So they think avoidance, it will be resolved by itself, as everything else has been resolved in their life. But what they don't realize is exactly what Mo was saying. If there is a chance for it to happen, most likely it will happen, right? So that's the law. Whatever that can go wrong, guess what? Will go wrong. Plan for
Murphy's
it.
Law.
Yes, it's Murphy's Law, yes.
And at the worst possible moment.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's why we see millions of businesses going under, millions of people losing their jobs. But you never know. If you go and learn from this might not be a loss. It might actually be a gain.
Yeah. One of the tools that is taught in business school is a self-analysis called the SWOT analysis. And that's for your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And really your threats can be summarized as a lot of those risks we're talking about. But it's a really good tool to utilize because it makes you sit down and list out the things that what you're strong at, what you're weak at, and also where you might go. But that opportunities and threats are almost the yin and the yang of the same side of the coin. And that's the word in Chinese, Mu, that you were referring to earlier. That's the same thing in the Chinese word. It's basically they are just the opposite side of the coin. So that's one tactic you could use that could really help you in assessing your risk scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Holmestoner. My question is that, these organizations, can you hear me? These organizations more focus on small and medium enterprise. On the other hand, if we observe media, government policy, different initiative, actually all of the big corporations getting a lot of benefit and supports from even in COVID situations. So what do you want to suggest this small medium enterprise? What do you want to suggest this small business organization, micro initiatives, social entrepreneurs in these pandemic situations? Because now many organization has a lot of challenges. So in that situations, what should we do together? Mr. Homestoner, can you hear me?
He's muted, I think.
Can you unmute, please?
It's on a lower left.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that. I couldn't unmute myself. Okay, so I'm not really sure I understood the question clearly.
Okay, my question is that in Asia Pacific, in COVID-19 situations, there are many small, medium enterprise, there are many small organizations, now they are in trouble. On the other hand, if you observe different governments, different corporate, like different policy and different initiatives in favor of big corporations, this is the reality. So in that situations, how actually this small organization they can survive, how your organizations can help this kind of small medium enterprise, or how they can collaborate with this your organization. What your advice and suggestion?
Well, actually, they're in a much better situation than the big corporations are in a lot of ways. We're looking at companies like Ford Motor Company, Dow Chemical, IBM, a lot of these big companies that are in much worse problems than the small companies have. The companies like restaurants and people that do actual personal services, they are suffering because of the personal interactivity. But small businesses, especially manufacturing, import, export, and companies that, as we were saying before, in the supply chain management side and logistics, they have an advantage in the fact that they have a lot of flexibility. They can change quickly. They can change with the environment. In the post-COVID world, you're going to see a lot of people change their business models just because they have the ability to do that quickly. These big corporations don't have the luxury of changing quickly. And so if you're not an Amazon or a Google or a Facebook or any of these companies that make their money on online services, like Moo was saying before, these companies obviously are thriving because the whole world is gravitating towards online services and online communication. But the guys that the standard guys, the guys that get left in the rearview mirror, those people are going to they're going to suffer, and they're going to suffer a lot, and they're going to suffer for another year at least. The small companies that have the ability to change their business models have a better chance. They have a much better chance of survival. Especially if they can reach out and connect by using services like ours that can give them the advice, educate them on the new world, and give them a little bit of guidance on how to use their flexibility to their advantage.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. Yes.
To me, it's just what Mr. Stoner said, is I used to drive large ships and work for large companies. And, when you want to make a turn, you have to think about it sometimes hours in advance because it takes so long to turn. But when I drove small ships, you could just go where you want. Same thing as when I left the corporate world and did small companies. Like we talked about our company, which pivoted, changed its whole business model 3 times in a very short amount of time. And the same thing is true with California Miramar University. We went from a mostly online university to a totally online university and was able to change into 2 other markets. The things that we've done since the shelter in place started is just we've been busier and opening new markets and doing more things since COVID started than before. So that's what I think the advantage of small business. It's like we talked about early, where if you get out of thinking, here's where we are, here's what we do, here's what the environment we work in, and say, who can we really help and who do we need to partner with if needed to do that? And so we've taken on tons of new partners. And that's the other thing, is it's much faster to partner for small companies to partner with other small companies. It's much, much faster. So we've created these major partnerships with lots of companies. And this has all happened since the COVID shelter-in-place happened. I think everybody here could tell you what it's busy. You know, it's not like you could sit back. But the key is, when I worked with the billion-dollar software company, we couldn't have moved that fast.
Mhm.
We would say, you know, what is our plan for next year, and how do we align it? And the bigger we got, the harder it was to make these changes.
Mhm. Yes.
Now, actually, I was looking at ensuring sustainable financing and stable cash reserves after pandemic. That's, to be honest, it seems like there are those who always know how to manage their cash flows, and there are those who go from one firefighting to another. First of all, it seems like, I don't know, is it a personality issues? I'm not sure. But financial discipline is a very major factor, especially COVID-19 has taught us that if you don't watch out, it's going to come to haunt you. Now, obviously, first of all, money is not what you think. Money is just an agreement between people. I mean, just imagine we have not worked for such a long time. Trillions of dollars have been injected into the economy. So it's not real, right? So if this agreement between people here, you got $1 million from me, where did you get it from? What is it, your business sort of activities? But that's what in reality is happening. So the issue is not lack of financial resources or lack of financing. The issue is learning the right language. I know people who do really irrelevant, high risk type of activities, and they have the ability to raise so much money for nonsensical activities. And I know people who do very relevant work, very valuable work. They are great at what they do, and they barely make it if they don't go broke. So it seems like the art of money, and I'm not talking about art of the deal, the art of money is an art that you need to be cognizant of first. To understand it's an art. You know, especially living in USA, I'm originally not from USA. I am amazed on how Americans can continue living without money. It seems like, you ask anyone for, let's say, $10,000, 999 out of 1,000 will tell you they don't have it. Even ask $500, 99% will not have it. So living on borrowed anything, I guess, is the way people sell their livelihood. Now, where I come from, the Middle East or the Far East, where most of your people by their name come from, we don't have that luxury of having our lives sold ahead of time before its time comes. So banks are not there to sniff out your life. However, now you deal with the fact that you're competing against someone who sells their future, but they have money to compete with you. You need to understand what money means, especially post COVID-19, how to attract it, and sometimes maybe you don't need money. It is maybe your lack of understanding that you think it is the money that solves your problem. Because, for example, when you have money, what do you need money for? You want to pay someone? You want to buy something with it? Why do you need money? You don't need money for sake of money. Money is a medium of exchange of something for something. Think about, can I get that thing without paying money? For example, partnership, joint venture. Can I have them share the venture with me, the result with me? Now that becomes a different situation. People who are rich usually spend like poor people, like they have no money, and people who are poor spend like rich. They have to pay 3-4 times. Uh, for people, I travel a lot. If you know how to manage your financial affairs, you never pay for a airline ticket or for a hotel stay. I mean, actually, you get everything for free. The issue of money management at your business level requires you to have a discipline. But before discipline, ontologically speaking, meaning what it is sort of question, you need to understand what is money and why is money and how do you use money and how much money you need to get something going. Rarely a good businessman, a good entity needs money to do business. You need ideas, you need discipline, you need connections, you need a lot of things. But money is not the necessary thing. And if you think money is the most important, most likely you're poor. Otherwise, you would not think money is that significant. Usually, we have a tendency, if we don't have money, to think money is everything. I know people without a penny, they have made millions. I know companies that are managing life because, like, look at Amazon. Amazon never spends money. Some people sell through Amazon. Amazon gets paid and pays the people who have actually produced the product months later. Actually, Amazon uses everybody else's money to do business. So you need to understand money. Again, any of these issues no longer not knowing is an option. You need to know, and you need to understand specifically about you and your environment.
Thank
There's
you.
also that idea of price and cost when you're thinking about things. People think price is dollars or monetary, and so people think that you pay money for a product, and you actually don't. It's not just money; it's what does it really cost you? Does it cost you time? Does it cost you status? In terms of what it takes to buy something. And then the value you get isn't just the product. Is there support? Is there a relationship? Is there a brand? So when you start thinking about money, what you're really doing is giving or charging overall cost or value. And as Dr. Gooyabadi said, that value that you provide doesn't always cost you money. And the price that you pay doesn't always cost you money. So you have to separate the idea of money from price or cost and from value.
So carry on that theme, but from a different perspective. You can ask what money is, but you can also ask what is it that you are doing. And another following up question is what you are doing actually benefit the world? In other words, does the world needs what you are doing, or what you were doing before the pandemic? If you think about, there are some industries and there are some businesses that's just become outdated or become irrelevant once the COVID hit. For example, the oil industry. And all of a sudden you have the surplus oil where they are gonna give you money if you take their oil off their hand to store it. So that the oil industry, yes, take a big hit. And from small business point of view, our gas stations, maybe you're operating an independent gas station, if that's still a thing, then all of a sudden you're out of business because people no longer have the needs to commute. So in that situation, it's pretty a dire situation for those kind of business owners. But I would argue majority of business owners don't really have that problem. The need of commute or the efficiency of how we transfer goods or people have increased due to COVID, because all of a sudden you don't need to have everybody driving a car to the restaurant. All of a sudden you have basically one or two guys driving the food to people, and they will make their route as efficient as possible because they want to save money. right? So all of a sudden you have a lower demand for gas. But on the other hand, there are businesses out there that's getting hit because people cannot travel. For example, the salon industry. Like, look at my haircut. I don't even cut my hair anymore. So the barber shop, the small business, how would they do? So if you think about it, what does a barber do, right? So, cutting hair, yes, you use a tool and you use it on your hair, and then the hair is suddenly cut. So what does they really do? They provide a service, but why do we need a barber to provide that service? Why can't we just all ask our spouse or our friends to cut our hair? Because they offer an expertise. And if expertise is really what you are offering, then you don't really have a problem. Keep offering that, but remotely, right? If you're a barber or if you're a hairdresser or some other kind of service provider or a car maintenance guy, right? So yes, your work normally is in the action of your work, but in reality, people are paying for your expertise. Why not provide that expertise online to even more people? Or, in some case, online, there isn't a platform for you on the internet. Like for example, if you are a fisherman who fishes, yes, you can say you are selling fish, but all of a sudden, if you don't have market anymore, or at least not in your country, people are not really eating fish, then that's what organizations like PRBC is there for. They would broaden up your entire market, and they will find people who actually need fish in the entire world. And all of a sudden, you don't have a market problem. You don't have access to market problem. You have a supply shortage problem. So if the entire world is your market, you better start to fish more. And yeah, that's what I have to say on how do you get over the so-called financial crunch or operational crunch in small business. Think about what you are actually doing and do it another way that's suitable for the overall environment.
Mhm. Thank you. Professor Foster, yes.
Thank you. Well, where we were talking about the situation of being expedient, I do think that the market is changing. I don't see this quite the same way that Moo just described it. I think that the services industries are maybe hit harder in the United States than they may have been in some of the other countries, because we have there's a big flashback and lashing out of over-regulation by the governors in these states. Each state has its own set of rules and regulations, and so there's like in California, businesses have been shut down completely. So and these haircutters and those people, they're dramatically impacted, and even the restaurants are impacted. One day that they're open, the next day they've changed some sort of regulation, and it's very hard to determine. So I think those type of industries and businesses that are outside of the United States, not that they don't face a lot of the similar challenges, I don't think they're going to be impacted in quite the same way. But I do believe that what the opportunity that Dr. Gooyabadi and Mr. Stoner and Eric and Moo have all talked about is that now utilizing the technology and finding out new areas where to go with your business. And if you're being impacted, like we said, there is possibilities to network and utilize the services of the Pacific Rim Business Council to find new markets and new supply chain opportunities. I think that's really the option that we are bringing to this region, because again, we're trying to take the things that we know and we see how they work at the larger in the governmental areas, but they also work on a smaller platform as well. It's just finding out how they are different for your particular business. And again, it's that SWOT analysis I was telling you about. Nobody has the same, all of the same strengths, all of the same weaknesses, or opportunities and threats. But it's finding out what those things are, and then coming up with some bright and out of the box ways to increase your business and mitigate those threats of that you're facing in terms of market or whatever your short-term threat is and risk that you're facing.
Yeah, I was looking at methodologies for assessing potential risk and response. There are well-defined methodologies. I mean, PMBOK obviously deals with this and has actually one chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Chapter 11 has been assigned to it. Risk Doctor has its own, they have their own so-called ATOM framework, which I suggest if you're not familiar with it, take a look at it. By the way, he has a very good book on it in which he really goes step by step and explains how to go through process of risk identification, risk registry, as well as risk mitigation. A very well designed and well practiced methodology. There are many different ways. Now, when you say as we prepare to enter a new era of work, what will change? I mean, one thing, let me tell you, I don't care if it's new era or other era. The only thing that does not ever change is that everything will change. So that's issue one. I mean, we even don't know what's going to happen next week. We're waiting to see if our president is allowed to go home today or not. And you see our president taking just a ride for 5 seconds has caused so much turmoil and changes that change is something you need to accept as the state of being. Constant and continuous adaptation to change is the only way of living. If you accept that, now what will change? As I said, a lot of jobs are gone forever. They will never come back. Another thing, remote work, home shoring, I think is going to be looked upon from different points of view. So what will change? A lot of commercial buildings will no longer be needed. A lot more online activities. So commercial real estate is in real trouble. Offices will not be rented the way they used to attract rents. People will no longer be paying that kind of money they did for going to rub shoulders with someone, because those rubbing is gone and they notice they don't need to. As a matter of fact, if this is gonna last for another year, which most likely will, people will find other ways of entertaining themselves, or not cutting their hairs, or not wearing a pants, or whatever. But things are changing in such a fashion that affects businesses such as restaurants, such as barbershops, such as bars, such as gathering places. People, I think rents will start coming down for real estate. New approach will be taken and new businesses will come up, like redesign your apartment to have an office in there. Okay, so a lot of home office type of creation activities. A lot of new devices when it comes to interaction, from software to hardware, where people and computers get to know one another better. A fair amount of work will be in human-computer interactions. I mean, you name it, there are so many more that are going to come our way, from gaming industry to entertainment to apparels to a lot more.
And
Yes.
we already have one of our doctoral students that's he's got his real estate license. He's already started taking advantage, and he's looking at buying buildings, commercial buildings, and transforming them into apartments. And he's having some success at it.
Yes, that's the future.
Yes. Beside that, I want to know, like, US and China has some sort of challenging relationship right now. Even November, I think there is an elections, and we don't know. I just observed the last debate. Actually, I do have some sort of engagement with the debating community. in Oxford Union, in Cambridge Unions, and with the Harvard Unions, and even World Debating Championships. So I do not know. I do not want to hurt anyone, but perhaps this debate was one of the symbol that there is no analysis, no proper informations. And actually US debate is something like that. All of the people around the world, they are actually observe this debate and they learn many things from this thing. So what you want to say about this debate, as well as what you want to say about this US China relationship, what will happen next actually few years, even
Oh,
this November election?
no, yeah, I guess we're not a political establishment, but that doesn't mean we don't have political ideas and opinions. And I'm sure right here between the five of us, we have five different opinions. So what I say has nothing to do with PRBC. So issue one, issue two, uh, people have a tendency to consider American politics very superficial and stupid, as they would our smiles, because we smile a lot. But in reality, I mean, why do you think Americans smile? Because America is a place where immigrants come to. And immigrants, they used to speak funny for as far as this particular or that particular group was concerned. So rather than outright laughing at one another, they learned the art of smiling. That way, you nod your head and you smile. And another thing I didn't know. So it became American. Smile, nod, and say, oh, I didn't know that. So therefore, we come across as superficial because of that. But in reality, what you're seeing in the politics of USA, someone like Donald Trump has been around for more than 4 decades. He has the heartbeat of American consumer in his hand. He knows how to use profanity. He knows how to ride waves. Don't mistake that for a bully running around and kicking and screaming. That's not the case. It's a guy who knows how to use profanity and attention seeking stunts in a proper fashion. Otherwise, it's the same. It's just a method, number one. Number two, what you saw from that debate was not two individuals fighting, but two group of people with diverse thinking about an issue that they don't know how to make heads from tails. I mean, if it was that simple, then it would have been managed simply. This is US of A. Yes, we were ashamed of what we saw. Yes, it was not in line with the norm. And from normative humanism point of view, it didn't look good. But in reality, here is the heart of the world. Now, when this heart has an issue, it's really an indication that the world has an issue. It's not an issue that is here in USA. When president says, you think we got 7 million and suddenly like China has none or India has none, they're lying. And he's telling the truth. Okay, simply speaking. I myself come from Iran and you look at their numbers. I think I know even more people that those numbers who died. Okay, so simply speaking, I know they're dying like crazy. I mean, they're saying, the numbers, they are announcing that they have contracted COVID or have died from COVID. As we said, I know more people than that. For sure, they're dying. So in reality, the appearance of what you see in USA is really something that is happening in the world. Issue one. Issue two, the Cold War that, okay, whatever you have as your strength, you use it whenever comes a danger. What is US's strength? Its economic power and its military power and its technological power. These are the three power it has, and it's trying to leverage it as much as it can. Now, for sure, China is winning the war. What war? The economic war. China's movement, especially prior to 2018, China was very much moving outward peacefully without ever interacting with any nation from political point of view. Buy our stuff, we love you. You want to do whatever you want to. So they were non-political, more cultural, and non-intervention. I mean, recently they have changed their ideas. So what you're seeing is a very well designed, well defined, well coordinated move by CCP, and they are trying. This is the China's Communist Party, and they have done a fair amount of work since 1992-3. That we see the culmination of all of that into a very strong show of real force globally. Now, US was caught off guard, had no choice, our system doesn't work. And now suddenly we see that China is winning this war. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to intimidate the hell out of China. We send our warships into South China Sea. We go into this and that. But in reality, because China is managed differently and they're more sustainable and long-term, they don't have to deal with the 4-year or 8-year terms. They're there for life. In reality, I do not believe you can make much of this so-called the desired Cold War of USA. And what China is on a path of, because China realized that having population should not necessarily be what stands a threat, it could be an opportunity. Because China has made a very conscious decision to concentrate on keeping its population and populace into an advantageous point of view rather than disadvantage, even though they're doing their own issues internally from Hmong to Mongolians. Because that's happening there, I believe nothing's going to come out of this so-called US-China desired Cold War. China's not willing to play, and Europeans have shown that they have no interest whatsoever into a new Cold War. And they have stayed on the sideline and they have not moved. Even in places such as Iran, we noticed that USA was alone. I mean, Security Council, simply speaking, stayed out. And so now US is going to be tested once again to see does it have enough strength and resilience to be able to maintain its dominance in the financial market. And that's the issue to be seen soon, because ASEAN countries, European countries, many different groups of people are trying to fight this unfair, as far as they're concerned, dominance of US over financial instruments and mechanisms worldwide. So I believe that what you're going to see by 2025, you're going to see that the dominance will decrease to a certain extent, and it's not going to do much for at least today. The internal fight in USA is fight for survival, has nothing to do with outside, even though the players here have an eye outside, because US interest is the globe. You know, we go and kill people in Afghanistan because they threaten our borders, and you know, we do things. That's who we are, I guess. But I'm not sure if this is going to be able to last much longer, because we have issues regarding our own internal affairs, unemployment, different dogmas coming to fight one another. Because that's the case, I personally believe that no matter who wins, Donald Trump or Biden, the changes here are mandated more by the facts on the ground. We are very pragmatic. USA is very pragmatic. I think this issue with China has to continue, because US cannot afford having China grow the way it's growing. Therefore, India will benefit from this Chinese, I guess, boycott to a certain extent. But I think China has its own plan and is going to mitigate this risk, understands it. And I believe by 2025, China will be by far the largest economy and strongest nation by then. That's my take on it. Again, personal.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Mr. Mo. Yes. Actually, there is a huge audience questions and response. So that's why I add some questions for your understanding, because when the situations come, actually, I think that the US politics and other things come, people are just thinking about the change leaderships and critical things come in these sessions. So what do you want to share about this China and USA relationships, our other panelists?
There's you have two questions in that formatted in that one long question. So first of all, what do I think about the debate by itself? Donald Trump, in my opinion, he's from marketing point of view, he's a human-shaped clickbait, and he will do whatever it takes to get more clicks. And what is a clickbait? It's something that grabs your attention but doesn't have the substance to back it up. And right now, this kind of links to our second question: why are we having such a problem with so-called, feels like the World War III is almost going to happen tomorrow, right? But that's just, don't worry about it. That's just what actually generate eyeballs, what actually attract eyeballs, what actually generate clicks. And if what Donald Trump has to do to generate clicks is to bash China, then that's why he has to do it. And he's not the only one in the world that's doing it. There's a Belgian, not prime minister, one of their senator or the politician. He actually went to Taiwan to generate some controversy. And the Indian Prime Minister Modi, he has the clash between China and India. I don't know if our audience know about that. There was face fight between the two countries for quite a couple of months. And why is that happening? Because the politicians want to take the public's eyeball off what the real situation is. And the real situation is, India, COVID is getting out of control. They are trying to control it, but it's having very little effect. And if you want to take people's mind out of something that's not so good, you put something worse on it. And similar situation in the US, right? The economy, it's not really suffering as much as we think, but that's hugely thanking to the Federal Reserve actually printing money with no regard for tomorrow. So that will come back and bite us. But what are you going to do? But in order to shift people's attention from the real risk or the real scary situation, they throw in something even scarier. You're worrying about tomorrow's economy? Don't worry about that, because we're going to have a World War III tomorrow. And that's basically the way they think. And a lot of those are just scaring tactics for our so-called normal people. And I do see a very interesting question in the chat: the impacts of COVID on new startups and small and medium-sized enterprises, and can they survive this situation? So I remember very vividly once I attended to a speech that's given by the internal control guy at Simpsons, and he said that Samsung is not Samsung, Siemens, the German company, German electrical company, and he said Siemens is at a disadvantage competing with newer companies because they were born in a different age. They weren't born pre-internet. And a lot of big companies out there are in the same boat. They're facing the same problem. But small companies, these new startups, most of them by definition are born in the internet age. And if we have nothing to take away from this whole panel today, you gotta take away one thing, is that the internet is the answer to COVID. And if your company is born in the age of the internet, you probably have an advantage over the older, bigger companies. Right? You're much more agile, you're much more flexible in the way you do business. And it's not too late for you to change the way you think about your business. And it's definitely too late for some of the older companies. So in my opinion, the small and middle-sized enterprise, especially the new startups, they actually have a higher chance to survive this than some of the older guys.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Eric.
So to understand U.S. politics, you really have to understand the gap instinct, which is to create an us and them. There's the U.S. and China, there's men and women, there's Republicans and Democrats. It's an artificial gap. It doesn't really exist. There's not this big line where people are really one or the other. If you look at both sides, what most people really want is freedom from harm, fairness, effective leadership, effective government, and ethics. And we can pretty much agree on that, but that doesn't help a political party because they have to get voters to sign up to their side. So you have to create this difference. So what you're saying is this artificial difference, which is fueled by the ability to get power and win votes. And the thing that aids that is a confirmation bias, where you only look at information. They've even done studies, which is the more passion you are, the more you view the study as supporting your side, whether it's true or not. So that's what you see in America, is this artificial divide fueled by confirmation bias, to the point that we even have channels that have already written all the news. So if you like the Republican side, you watch Fox News, and it only tells you that Donald Trump's great. And if you like the Democrat side, you watch MSNBC, and it only tells you that Donald Trump is awful. The same kind of thing is between U.S. and China. While there are amazing and significant differences, like Moo said, there's this artificial gap because you have to get the clicks and you have to get the votes to say the difference is that. Meanwhile, there's Republicans, Democrats working together all the time on all kinds of stuff, especially that doesn't have to do with politics. And there's U.S. and China doing deals every day. I know lots of people that have companies and are doing factory, but they throw out that confirmation bias and that gap instinct, and they just worry about, oh, what can we do here? What's in my way? How do we clear out the gap? How do we clear out the roadblocks? And how do we work together? So I actually haven't seen, politics aside, I haven't seen as big a differences as we would think based on everything that's happening. I see more opportunities, actually, and people exploring those.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Professor Foster.
Well, I have similar views, but also radically different views. I'm troubled mainly as an American because I'm an independent. I voted for Democrats and I've voted for Republicans, but I see a war going on right now in the United States, and I see and it's not a good scenario for it. It's the challenge here is some of our basic amendments. I personally studied American history, and the reason everybody wants to come here is because we have a 3-tier system that has checks and balances, and we need to control these checks and balances as we go forward. The biggest significance that we are talking about with China right now, and I think that we're going to get back to center after the election and after the virus has subsided. There's going to be some bad feelings. You're already seeing it. If you want to talk about supply chain, we are the biggest weakness that the United States was pointed out in this Wuhan virus is that we didn't control our own drugs. They're all made in China. So if we had any challenges with China, and that immediately the government has stepped up, and companies like Kodak, which was one of our big before digital cameras, they're now going in and they're bringing back manufacturing of those type of vital back to the United States. That's not going to change. I do think we'll get back to close to where we were. If Biden wins, I think we'll get back with China very soon. Because he was very much, in favor of all of those policies, and so I think that is going to happen. But again, from an American standpoint, I'm only worried that when one side didn't get its way, they start saying that they're going to stack the court and they're going to change the Constitution and they're going to put more justices on the Supreme Court. That basically, you've just messed with what the founding fathers of our country had in mind. So I think that's more of I have a deep concern for that reason. Economically only, I think it's going to get back to center. I do think there is going to be some long-lasting repercussions with China because of Trump calls it the China virus. I don't think most Americans aren't that politicized by it. But again, it did come from Wuhan, and so the situation is that how is that handled? And both sides of the press are covering that. But I do think, again, if Biden wins, it's going to get back to normal with China much more rapidly than if Trump wins. And Trump will probably dig in. If he wins, he's going to, for the next 4 years, you're going to see even stronger sanctions and stronger tariffs on China for that 4-year period.
I think the biggest difference in U.S. and China is that China is planning and executing over long term, and the U.S. is fighting. So we're not planning on anything, and we're not executing together. So China will continue to move forward with long-term plans, as we've seen them do for decades. But at the same time, I think one of the biggest changes is going to be technology. Communication is changing cultures and lots of things. So the industry 4-level technology is going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, and I think it used to be that we used to think, okay, we got the solution, democratic solution in USA is the answer and things gonna work out fine. But now as we see that at least it's electing people for a 2-year office, electing people for a 4-year office does not cut the mustard. We are dealing with issues at the global scale that needs much more refined approach, less politicized, less masses, and more into understanding what the globe is facing. Because that's the case. I think the American style, as Stan was saying, it doesn't matter who wins. I believe the reality of China is a reality of China. Maybe we may come up with one or two eye-catching sort of rhetoric, but at the end of the day, China is China and has found its place and root in the world, as India and Nigeria are trying to do. So in reality, I believe the challenges in USA are 80% USA based and only maybe 20% and even maybe 20% external. And that 20% has nothing to do with USA, but people who control the US decision makers, the mega billionaires who control our politicians who are there. They have been hired, they have been put in a place, and they are the puppets that are being used. Otherwise, USA is right now very much concerned about its own well-being, and people are afraid for their life. They are afraid for their lives, and because that's the case, you see a fearful outcry of what people are looking into the future. Our Generation Z is not anymore involved. Now, because we are always hopeful and positive psychology works well here, we don't see as many numbers of suicides, but a fair amount of unrest because we as Americans are told you can achieve anything you put your mind to. However, China, on the other hand, is not that at all. China is a long-term, sustainable, major power with 1.4 billion people and having its fingers all over the world. Just look at the China's Road and Belt Initiative, because that's the case. I believe things are going to change, and we as human beings today are dealing with companies, meaning mega companies such as Amazon, such as Google, such as Apple, or nation states such as China, which are there in a different fashion that the modern world is used to it. The concept of China is a 20-year-old concept that we still do not understand it. I don't think even China's Communist Party is understanding it. I believe China's Communist Party will soon change its name to China's Cultural Party, because today China is no longer a Marxist communist. None of it. Those things are gone. But China is a Chinese way of thinking, long-term, Confucius type of activity. And these clashes are going to continue, but the clashes are moving more and more away from US versus China into companies that are much larger than some countries. that are trying to see how best they can take advantage of the consumers and continue living. And to be honest, their life is more important than the masses. So issues are very interesting from anthropological and sociological point of view.
Mhm. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is actually really, really nice discussions, and actually many audience come up with a different questions. There is a huge. I think even if we continue another 1 hour, there are a lot of questions. So I want to go for the wrap up the sessions. So I want to start the concluding remarks from Mr. Eric, then Mr. Moo, then Professor Foster, and finally the concluding remarks from Dr. Ali. Yes.
It's a good time globally, and I think we've shown that. We've formed at least 2 companies, did a partnership, opened 3 new markets. Dr. Gooyabadi will be in Dubai next week, opening a new office. So it's a good time to do business. What's made it most is the ability to rethink who we are, who we help, not get stuck in that. And the partnerships have been phenomenal to be able to reach out and get lots of ideas and feedback. So, there's this idea that Holmes Stoner came up against many years ago, which is only the big companies can be global. And he said that's not true. If you understand yourselves and what you can do and you have the resources. Well, now it's easier than ever to get global resources. That's the big change. Technology has made it where you can get resources. So if you want to meet Dr. Gooyabadi in Dubai next week and start business there, you can do it even if you appear there virtually. So I think it's a good time globally for business, but it's not a good time if you don't like change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Mo.
I would argue it's never a good time if you don't like change, because change is the only constant. And I also agree with Eric that it's good time to do business, and all you have to do is to first of all figure out what your business is on technology level, what is actually that you do, and what benefit are you providing to the society or to the entire mankind. And another thing is to figure out how to do it. So the first part, you always need to do that. Like before COVID, like even before industrial revolutions, you need to figure out what is it that you do. But with COVID, there's something new. You have to figure out how to do it in a way that had never seen before. COVID actually accelerated our acceptance of technology. In the US, it's used to be credit card, or sometimes cash. But in China, they already switched to a cashless. They become a cashless society, and just because they are not that set on using credit cards, or Visa and MasterCard doesn't really care too much about the Chinese market. And by the time they realize it's a big piece of meat, it's too late for them because China has already gone cashless. And US, you start seeing trends like that. People are business. You can see business stop taking cash. Some of them are cash only, card only, and they don't touch your cards. They let you insert your card. And some of them are going to the length where you actually scan a code instead of physically putting your cards in. So this trend will never happen, before COVID, but COVID actually made that happen. So that's just one example on showing you how the way we do business have changed. And as small to medium-sized businesses, you better start thinking about that fast, because yes, you are more agile, you have more playroom in how to change your organization, or you can change your organization faster comparatively to some of the traditional businesses. But if you don't change it fast enough, you are facing a very punishing market in the world right now. Because if you don't change, your neighbors will change, and once they change, you will be left out of the loop.
Thank you, Professor Foster.
Thank you. Again, I hope that you've all enjoyed this brief get together today. I think it has given you a little bit of insight into the three organizations that we have put together that we're creating our global network, and that's California Miramar University, Pacific Rim Business Council, and the Innovative Technology Solutions Corporation. And again, I think what we're trying to do with the Pacific Rim Business Council is to create that network that you can continually tap into and ask questions that you need. I know there's a lot of questions that were asked that we didn't get to, but get into that space where you have a network that is of like-minded individuals. And in our case, we have some very intelligent individuals that are book smart, that are very adept at taking your particular situations and modifying solutions that might be really, really good for you. So hopefully you'll find some value in that. We hope to be serving you in the future. And thank you again for tuning in and watching this today.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ali, like before you go for the concluding remarks, I just want to say for World Talent Economy Forums, because I think audience really enjoy a lot. Many audience actually join from different countries. They come up with the questions, and definitely we're going to explore this session as much as possible. Even World Talent Economy Forum, Asia Research and Development Institutions, Al Noor Academy, Sarhadiya Barhad, we are working together. We are trying to solving the local systems, local ecosystems, and as much as possible, we are engaged with the youth community. So as you have university, so maybe we can do many research, as well as we can help the local youth community to develop their academic sectors and other things. Especially in the COVID period, I think the education has the new opportunities, as well as industry also come up with some new opportunities. So if we can collaborate with all of the big things, definitely we can give some very good solution for the Asia Pacific markets. So I know that all of you are very experienced in from your academic sectors or the business sectors, and everywhere you have a very good contributions. So with like collaborations with this PRBC, hopefully World Talent Economy Forum will arrange more intellectual discussion in the futures, and definitely we can bring more a sustainable business together. Thank you for your valuable time and everything, and I directly request Dr. Ali for the concluding remarks for today's session.
Yeah, I think I owe you first an explanation. The fact that Mr. Stoner left, he just received the sad news that one of his friends just passed away. That's the reason he left. Another issue about let me start with the last question. That's from Shohel Rana. He says, in the current situation, how to make academia relevant and academics more attractive on the labor market. You see, unfortunately, because a lot of people try to learn from the Western world, Western world's academia became a business in itself. A business not necessarily to produce anything but students who have degrees. And that has sort of defeated the main purpose of education in trying to better the society, have more active, more productive individuals added to a particular society, where an industry was created in UK, in USA, in Canada. So because that's the case, that's what we have retracted from at California Miramar University. We've retracted from that common understanding into making sure that graduates, as soon as they are graduated, they hit the ground running, meaning they will be taught relevant issues. Classes that are just about books and reading books and solving typical problems and doing homeworks are not going to help anyone. And I don't think anymore a smart person is interested to just go and get a bachelor degree, master degree, whatever. So for really making academia relevant is to go back on the basics of academia. Academia is supposed to give you the skill set that you can do better in your work, in your environment, and be added value to your family, to yourself, to your society, and hopefully to the global community as a whole. So that's that. Now, what I think we started today, and this is the start, I don't think this is an end. We appreciate any group of people coming together, independent of what region of the world they come from. Because it is no longer where you live, but how you think. It is no longer that what city you reside in is how well connected you are. And it is no longer what color or race or nationality you have, is what ideals you adhere to that makes you part of this group or that group. I think people at your forum are part of our group, independent of the social and geographical differences. We are of the same. We have the same concerns. We have the same aspirations. And as Mo said, very, I would say astutely is that uh, if you are not going to be part of the change, you're not going to be, period. For anyone to continue, especially you're younger, Stan and I are older generation, and we include Eric in there. We are over 60, so we're almost at the end of our journey. But for the younger ones, my suggestion is don't let anyone tell you that you are not good enough. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't have what it takes to make the required change to make this world a better world for you, your family, and the rest of humanity to live on. Don't let all these shortcomings of mankind to deter you from doing your best. Because as a matter of fact, these shortcomings of mankind, despite its negative aspect and the fact that we feel sad about it, in reality, that's how we are learning. That's how we are evolving. So we need to have a positive outlook. We need to look forward, and we need to get together in a fashion that creates synergy. Synergy means Sharif and I together are more effective than each of us. When we as a group get together, when you understand that the basis of such gatherings, such discussions, is for us to discuss, no one knows everything. We know everything. And if you want to be part of a we, you have to have the mentality of we. The courage to make mistakes, the courage to ask a stupid question is what is required of any one of us to grow. We need to grow. We need to adapt to changes. And despite all these shortcomings, go back 100 years ago from Spanish flu, see how many people died. Despite all these shortcomings, go back 100 years ago and see between First World War and Second World War till 70 years ago, how many people died, the amount of death and destruction. Despite all these shortcomings and all these challenges, see what people aspired to just a century ago. We are improving, we are getting better. More than that, I think Mo said something yesterday in a meeting that even though we are part of 7 billion, so 1 in 7 billion, and we feel insignificant, but as far as I am concerned, I am me. And the whole 7 billion, as a matter of fact, the whole cosmos is just in front of me. So it's I and God, I and the world, I. So that I should matter to you. Go and discover that I and see what makes you you. Because if you cannot answer what makes I, you cannot take any step further. As I said, to make mistakes requires courage. And to make mistake is the only way towards achieving a higher goal. I have never seen anyone gain without pain. And therefore, I suggest keep your chin up, be positive, and let's together create a better way. Thank you so much, Sharif, for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you, dear audience.
Thank you, sir. This is actually really excellent discussions. I already shared that audience has very good response, and they said that it's a excellent discussions, and they come up with the different questions, and everyone give them answer. This is very important, and the most important thing is that World Talent Economy Forum always try to bring the scholar like you and successful people like you, those who can encourage, motivate our youth community, and those who can help us to change our community. Thank you for your valuable time and everything.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Yes, bye.
All right. Thanks. See you later.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.